So over the past several years, Morgan's been the kind of person that's a fixture in the Magic community in Minnesota, but then also Wisconsin. Most recently, she moved to Madison, and she's been working very hard with stores there. And she's tried to create space for herself to be able to go to school, but then also to help the judge program. And so I asked her specifically to share about healthy judges and healthy communities and how judging can create those spaces for people. So Morgan, thank you so much for joining us. We ask that you hold forth. Everybody's here, so you can definitely join us and share whatever you need to. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction. It's very kind. My name is Morgan. I'm a level 2. I'm currently living in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm very interested in health, both physical and mental, and fitness, so I was really excited when Ken proposed that I do a presentation on this topic. So a lot of the time when we talk about health in terms of Magic, we're talking about how many copies of Hogak were in the top 8, right? And I'm a little sick of it. So we're going to be talking a little bit more literally. And I wanted to precede this presentation by saying that a lot of the examples I'm going to be using are Magic Fests, because Magic Fests are weekends where your whole life becomes about Magic, but it can be really applied to MCQs, pre-releases, FNMs, anything, including your daily life as well. So keep that in mind if you've never worked a Magic Fest or never been to a Magic Fest and think like, this doesn't apply to me. It can, just on a smaller scale. So let's get started. So why health? Who here has taken a judge call? Yeah. This is an audience participation presentation. I can see you in this little screen. Yes, okay. I need a volunteer. Could the person in the blue shirt, who I can't tell who that is, but blue shirt next to orange shirt, Zach. All right, Zach, could you stand up for me, please? All right, you're gonna have to come in front of the table though. This is, all right, so Zach, imagine you are taking a judge call that way. There's all on the other end of the room. You gotta go that way. Go take that judge call right now. Mike and Parker. Okay, all right, come back now. You've taken the judge call. It's all done. Another person over there has a judge call. You have to go back. All right, you can come back and sit down. Thank you for helping me demonstrate that. So in the fitness world, we call those wind sprints, and they're generally used as a punishment. As judges, we do that all the time. And so I want to show you this Fitbit graph from Magic Fest Minneapolis weekend. As you can see, those 3 tall bars were from the day of the event. I got this from one of my friends who's a player, but it lines up pretty well or under what my judge friends have seen on their step trackers compared to their daily lives. So as you can see, he lives a pretty low activity life normally, but then at a Magic event, his activity counter goes way high. So this is kind of a lot for a game where the joke is we sit to play, right? The level of movement can have a lot of negative impacts if you aren't careful, from pain to headaches to just not remembering whether counters apply on layer 7C or 7D. Does anybody know right now? +1/+1 counters? Which layer? 7C, 7D? Anybody? I heard it. It was D. Yes, you're right. Your body and your mind are just as much of a tool for judging as a red pen is, and that's as far as that metaphor is going. But taking care of your body and your mind is very important. And has anybody ever come home from a convention or a Magic Fest or a Magic tournament at all with just a horrendous cold? Turns out colds are, yeah, exactly. Colds are caused by a combination of sleep deprivation and poor nutrition, causing a weakened immune system, and also just touching a lot of things that other people touch. So if you take care of your health at events, you will have better events, more energy, you'll prevent those colds, and just overall improved well-being. Adjusting to healthier habits will probably also just make you feel better overall. Quick note about what this presentation isn't. With all due respect to Ken, I'm doing my best to make sure this presentation does not get preachy. One of the things that I worry about when I talk about health is that the person or people that I'm talking about think that I'm judging them or thinking that their life is bad if they aren't doing like healthy things, when that's definitely not the case. I want you all to know that I respect you, and the reason I'm giving this presentation isn't because the things that I'm talking about are bad and you shouldn't do them. Additionally, not everything I suggest here is going to be realistic for everyone. However, the things I'm going to talk about are like the strict upgrades in terms of lifestyle. We're going from Squire to Stoneforge Mystic, and it's up to you whether or not you have the equipment in your deck to use with it. I also want this information, the presentation, to include information you can bring to your communities. So this presentation isn't just about individual health. I also want a quick note: if you recognize any of these things that happen to you on a chronic basis, make sure that you talk to your doctor about it. I don't have any medical degree, I just have a lot of experience, so that's also important to note. So what this presentation is, I'm going to present changes and substitutions that can make your routine, that can improve your routine, as well as why you should make the effort. Feel free to speak up with your personal experiences and advice as well. I can't hear you if you like just talk in the crowd, but Ken, I think, is mediating for me, which is great. Additionally, if you've had problems with making these changes, there's a good chance that someone else has too. So asking questions helps not only you, but the people around you who are too nervous to, which is fine. There's also going to be a panel after this, and I'm really excited to hear about what everybody on the panel has to say. It's going to be a great one. All right, a quick note on caffeine, really fast. This is my personal soapbox, and I had an opportunity to stand on it, so here we are. 80% of Americans drink caffeine, and caffeine withdrawal sucks, so I don't expect you to quit, but caffeine has a lot of unpleasant side effects. So replacing it as often as possible with more sleep, more hydration, or carbohydrates will help you in the long run to avoid some of those. Additionally, conditions like depression can make you extra sensitive to side effects of caffeine consumption, like increased heart rate. I know as a person with anxiety, I tend to feel more anxious after having consumed caffeine because my body sees my heart rate increase and goes, whoa, there is something wrong here, when there's not. Caffeine is also a diuretic, which means that you can get dehydrated more easily if you aren't keeping tabs on your water consumption as well. And with that, I'm going to take a quick break and let you admire this beautiful art really fast. So, if there's one thing that you take away from this presentation, it's drink more water, no matter what the situation is. Water helps the rest of your body function, and as a result, you feel better when you're sufficiently hydrated. The Mayo Clinic lists some of the symptoms of dehydration as fatigue, dizziness, and confusion. And I know personally I get headaches when I haven't drank enough water as well. If that sounds familiar, you haven't been drinking enough water. And if you're like me, you probably feel those things and try to address it by like getting another coffee or like eating a candy bar or something. And when the actual solution is just more water, it's that simple. Drink water whenever you can. I know Magic Fests have been doing a really good job of having water stations, but also carrying a water bottle like this one, like I got it on Amazon. It was $10 for a 4-pack of them. It's got a handy little loop you can carry it by. Yeah, so like, and I promise if you guys start drinking more water, your team lead or the TO or whoever will not care that you are taking extra bathroom breaks, especially if you're doing better. So that's my spiel on water. Sleep is another important one. I'm not calling out anyone specific here, but some of my earliest memories from GP judging were seeing throngs of judges in the hotel lobby late. If you haven't gone to a GP, maybe you've done that thing where you went to a midnight pre-release right before you worked the one in the morning. That might just be me. It's definitely happened, and I've definitely slept through like the start of one before. It's bad. Sleep is important, both as like a way to energize you and a way to keep you mentally focused. if possible, get enough sleep before events. That means knowing your schedule and knowing like how much time what time you need to get to bed in order to get 8 hours in. Sleep hygiene is also important. If you have trouble getting to sleep, putting away your phone and like all of your electronic devices about an hour before you start going to bed would be helpful. And saving late nights for Sundays, specifically when referring to GPs, because otherwise you just need to you might need to get up at 8 in the morning after staying up until 1, and that's not good for anybody. So and I know that this can be an issue when it comes to eating dinner and socializing at events, because generally if you get done at like 7, you're not going to start eating food until 8:30 or so. um, so this is where knowing your schedule becomes really important, so that you can like make reservations with people, or like even just getting something set up and saying like, there's going to be 6 people here. If you need help, come to me and I'll find you 6 people. And I bet there's a lot of people in this room who know 6 people that you could fill a reservation with. Um, but yeah, so like you can still get your socialization in, but probably not at the expense of your sleep.
Can I interject quick on this?
Yes, absolutely.
When you check your schedule, they try not to close open much.
Yes.
But if they do, and you don't want to do it because you want sleep, they'll change it. You just have to contact Carlos at Channel Fireball Events, and they'll work on getting your schedule changed.
Mm-hmm. You can also be someone like me, where my schedule for Vegas is noon to close every day, which could be great for socializing late at night, except for I wake up at 5 a.m. regularly and can't sleep in past 7. So I know for a fact that I'm not going to be staying out late either. Food is wonderful. Food is fuel. I don't know if you've heard this before, but your body is a complicated machine, and without getting into the biochemistry of it, food is fuel for that machine. If you've ever felt yourself to be feeling sluggish and slow mentally, that could be your body running out of gas. You're also, as we've demonstrated at the beginning of this presentation, doing something that can be intensely physical. Even just standing, not taking calls at all, can be pretty hardcore. And at events, you sometimes have pretty random meal times. I know at the last MCQ that I score kept, I was like, hey, we should get food so that it'll get here at like 12:30 or something. And I'm pretty sure it didn't get there until 2. And that was completely like, I was the one who was ordering the food. So like, there wasn't anything that I could do apart from what I was already doing. So getting food in beyond just meal times will help with that. The trick here is to find something that will last your body a while. A good rule of thumb is the less processed food is, the longer your body will take on it. Therefore, the longer it will be in there providing energy. I like stuff like Cliff Bars or whole fruit. If you're staying at a hotel and they have like one of those weird breakfast areas, you can definitely steal some fruit from there on your way out, apart from just eating it for breakfast. Quick word on convention center food. Generally, it's pretty processed because that's what they like. It's food service, so they have to have food that keeps well. And it's not likely to get your body very well because it's fast processing carbs and saturated fats and some proteins, and that can cause you to crash. Like if you've ever played at an event and felt yourself like get actively worse at Magic after lunch, I know I have. That's why. So things that you can do: eat breakfast. Make sure that you are full from your breakfast. Bring snacks, and I know that there are a couple of people, including myself, who bring snacks for other people, like to share as well. So if you are hungry, ask the people you're working with, and we can generally find you something to eat. Consider packing your lunch or scoping out healthy options. You can be restricted by the rules of the venue or by the area that you're in. So like, for example, I know that at the MCQ that I mentioned before, they were not really into us bringing in our own food, but because the options that they had were so limited, we ended up ordering food anyway. So talk to your TO and make sure that like you're looking out for yourself as well. some healthy options, like you can find surprisingly healthy things at like, not surprisingly healthy. You can find just straight up healthy things at like Mexican restaurants. Anything that like cooks with rice and vegetables is great. And this isn't to say you should eat like salads at events. Salads are probably not going to help you just as much as like a slice of pizza is, but make sure that you're eating something that will keep you full and keep you going through the rest of the day. So this one is kind of a big one. There's a chance that we all have at some point experienced like getting really tired, or like maybe our feet hurt while judging, and push through it because we've been enjoying ourselves, which makes a lot of sense. It is not, however, an excuse to not take care of yourself. However, I think that's something that we should talk about more as a community. Are these elements of mental health that can be the result of a variety of things that you encounter while judging. I want to emphasize that this isn't saying that you're at fault if you experience any of these things, but I do want to bring them up because there are lots of options available to help you out. The first one is exhaustion. If you just like can't move, if you feel very tired, probably if you feel tired and you've had a cup of coffee and you still feel tired, the coffee isn't going to, like, more coffee isn't going to help you. See about taking a break early, seeing about finding a way to do your work while also not incorporating more physicality. So like instead of standing to judge, sit to judge. I did a lot of that at Magic Fest Minneapolis. I don't know if you can see these. These are crutches. I did a lot of sitting while judging, and it's a very valid way to judge. Players really appreciate that you're right there if they need help. Another one that I did a lot of talking to people about this morning was sensory overload, which is something that I personally don't experience, but can occur a lot in people with ADHD or people on the autism spectrum, or people who just like experience social or sensory overload. This is a thing where if you are feeling overwhelmed because of your surroundings, taking a step back, finding either a quiet hall or the judge area to hang out in for a while can be really helpful. And then burnout. So the best way I've seen burnout described is the mental equivalent of having too many tabs open on your browser. And this is one that I see a lot with regards to the judge program, just because there's so much that you can do and so much that we feel like we should be doing that we just do more than what we can realistically not handle, but more than what realistically makes us happy. And so that's where burnout comes in. And I know that mental health can be super personal, so please don't feel pressured to share if this is you. A lot of factors dictate how much of each of these things affect us, from like how many how many spoons that we like expend in our day-to-day lives, to our ability to be comfortable removing ourselves from our situation. Like if you're working with a team that's unfamiliar to you, it makes a lot of sense that you'd be uncomfortable asking to take a break versus, you know, the people around you that you've known and played with every day. Additionally, stress can come from many different places for many different people. For me, for example, fighting to be treated like an authority figure because of my gender really sucks. I don't have to deal with it as much as I used to, but I know that a lot of other women do. Microaggressions like that stack up to people who are marginalized in a community that is majority white, cis, male, even if you don't realize it. And this is the point where I want to ask if any of you guys have experienced burnout or social or sensory overload, and like what you've done to deal with it, because I think that sharing those experiences will really help with other people who might have experienced it.
We have a Dan.
me to, or
Yeah.
can you hear me, or do you want me to come closer to the mic?
I can hear you, Dan. Thank you.
Okay. So one of the most valuable things that I've been bringing to conventions. One of the most valuable things I've been bringing to conventions lately, and Magic Fest included, is earplugs. Basically, whenever I am not, actively working, and I don't need to necessarily be able to hear the judge call from 500 feet away, I put earplugs in, and it's very calming. Even though I don't think I really suffer from sensory overload or anything, it just really, really helps a lot. Especially if you're at like a bigger convention like Gen Con or something where there is no quiet hallway. Not in Indianapolis that week.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Thank you.
We had other comments. Jen?
Awesome.
Hi.
Hello.
I just want to say my first Magic Fest was this last week, as you know, as you remember.
Yeah.
But the one thing that calmed me down the most, honestly, when I got overwhelmed, especially my first event being so many people, is I found a judge judging nearby, and I just looked at somebody I would recognize, like for instance Ken. I would see him judging, and I'd look at him because it's something familiar for me, and that would just kind of calm my sensory overload, I guess.
Did you catch all that, Morgan?
Yeah, I did. And that's really awesome, especially because you were working at an event that is relatively local to you. So like, yeah, I recognized a bunch of people at the Magic Fest too. And if you, for example, are going to Vegas next week and might be working with a team that's really unfamiliar, I suggest introducing yourself so that you do have someone that isn't necessarily a stranger, even if they're not like somebody that you know personally yet, because you will get to know them very well by the end of the day.
We had some, yeah, okay.
Hello, friend.
Hello.
So, as a person who deals with depression and anxiety, there's very, very, very intense exhaustion that comes with these all-day events. And my current favorite thing to do is I'll just tell the TO, I need a second. And I'll just go into the back room and put on like a sleeping blindfold and just breathe. If there's no light, it's quiet, and you could just exist with no stress for just like a few minutes to get back on your feet, and that's been so helpful.
Mhm. That's awesome. I'm really glad that you have been able to find something that works for you, and also props to you for going to the TO and saying, "Hey, I need something." I think one of the biggest mistakes that newer judges make is not asking for anything from the TO, even if it's like something like personal time. TOs they're really looking out for like the judges in their like care, the judges who are working for them really, because having someone perform their best means that if they need a break, they can take a break. So I'm really glad that you do that.
Seeing if there's anybody else before we.
Okay. So I personally have one. I recently made level 2 for the second time, and part of that was because last year I started grad school again, and I really wasn't sure of my ability to balance judging and grad school and other magic stuff along with my full-time job. I work a full-time job too, and this is going to interrupt for a second. Sometimes she runs after them and stops barking. So yeah, and also I was also planning on getting a dog. Like I had a lot of stuff going on in my life and I was feeling very overwhelmed. And so I deserted down to level 1 again. And I think it was right for me because then I didn't feel like the pressure that I was putting on myself to do all of these things at once. And when I was ready to come back, I could, and that's awesome. So, like, taking a break might not mean for you taking 5 minutes out of your judging. It might mean like not applying for a GP, even though it's, within 6 hours drive, or, just going and playing in a pre-release rather than working one. So that's something where if you feel like there's too much pressure surrounding something, the best thing for you to do might be to take a break. I also really wanted to make you aware that while you might not be experiencing some of the things that we've talked about today, other people are. And as we've seen, there have been a bunch of people in the audience who've been kind enough to tell us about it. I also talked to people who experienced sensory overload this morning on Twitter, and they talked about, how difficult it is to hear people because you're in a room that has 2,000 of them, or how they stay outside of the hall in between rounds. And part of this presentation was I wanted to make you aware of what others are going through so that you can approach your calls with a little bit more empathy. The player who might have been doing the classic late Magic player sprint might have more of a story, and they probably won't tell you because you're the person who's giving them a game loss. Any player rushing to their seat at the beginning of the round may be coming back from a place where they were able to get some much needed quiet. And I think that's an important thing that we can factor in, because like it's not all, mindless, oh, I didn't realize, even though they might just say, oh, I didn't realize, because they don't want to have to explain about their autism or whatever is going on in their life. Which brings us to healthy communities. Gaming culture has a lot of cliches that run counter to what we've been talking about. Like, Mountain Dew, it sponsors a lot of gaming. Red Bull does too. And that's like, gaming culture is great. Some of the most fun I've had with my Magic friends was playing Magic online at 3 a.m. because that's what we wanted to do at a party. However, making healthy choices more mainstream means, for example, that your local game store offers you healthy snacks as alternatives to candy, that you and your friends make dinner reservations so that you don't end up eating at 11 p.m. by the time that you figure out where to go after your shift. And additionally, adding these conversations to your local scene means that people you don't even know who struggle with some of these things, whether they're like eating better or sensory overload or burnout, can benefit from being included in these conversations, or even just listening to the conversations. And additionally, having healthier habits will help you inside the game, but also outside the game. I, for a long time, didn't understand why I fell asleep during the 11 a.m. meeting every Thursday, and it's because I really wasn't eating breakfast. And when I started eating breakfast, I started being able to focus a little bit, and that's, my 9-to-5 office job. And I know that our panel is going to go more in depth about different elements of fostering healthy communities, which I'm really excited about as well. But does anybody have any questions for me while I am the one person on the screen right now? Nobody? Okay.
Everyone's just staring.
Everyone's, you know what? I don't blame you. So this is my contact information. You can go ahead and shoot me an email at morgan.t.wentworth@gmail.com. It's a lot to remember. It's also on Judge Apps. That's my Judge Apps email. I'm also on Twitter. I am taking a break from Twitter right now, more or less, except for this weekend. If you ever need a signal boost or anything though, please hit me up, especially when it comes to dealing with mental health issues in the community or anything that has to do with making your community better. I'd love to help you out, and I have quite a few Twitter followers, not to brag, but they'd be happy to help you out as well.
Clout.
so much clout. And this is where I ask Rob if he started recording, because I definitely didn't.
Oh yeah, I recorded from when you started. So
Excellent. I appreciate that.
Hey, one of the things that we're going to do is kind of open things up for a few questions, and I want to thank Morgan so much. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you.
I just want to start off with some personal questions. First, Rob and myself and Morgan are all going to be on the panel. Jordan will join us when he's done talking. They're talking about some very specific things out there with work, so it's a good thing. But one of the things that I'd really like to know is how have some of you, how have you, Rob or Morgan, how have you really involved in Magic on a weekly basis? What's the extent of your involvement?
For me, I just moved, but for the first year I lived in Madison, I was living downtown. I was very close to the Power 9 game store, and so I would go to, and my first semester of grad school, I was feeling like I needed to buckle down. But my second semester, sets started coming out that I wanted to draft, so I'd go there, F&Ms. There's I call it the DGen group chat, but it's just like the drafting group chat where you can post and get like a pickup draft together. So those are two ways that I've been involved in my local scene, on top of judging, scorekeeping the MCQ. I hope to do more of that, and judging at GPs, which I'm starting to do more of as well.
So Morgan, do you judge on a weekly basis then, right now?
I do not, no. The store that I play at has judges that are running the tournaments, or their employees are also judges.
And Rob, how about you? How much time do you spend really involved with Magic or in the organization on a weekly basis?
Magic independent of judging, it varies week to week. I've been trying to jam a lot of Modern because I'm playing in some Modern events coming up. I'm like playing it at the Team Grand Prix in Indy, and I'm playing in the MCQ, and I'll probably be playing in Fall Regionals. And I like Modern a lot, so I'll spend my lunches on Magic Online, and like one-ish night a week I get to play Magic Online as well. Not just play Magic stuff. I chill in the Slack chat while I wait for things to process at work. I answer emails frequently. Like generally not a day goes by where I don't have an email interaction or two about something program related right now. And that's like the minimum bare level. I have meetings with different people. Eric Levine and Meg and I have been getting together. I go to Grand Prix and stuff. This year, I'm the only event that I've slated on my judging calendar for the rest of the year is the Invitational, Specialty Games Invitational in November. I am the support judge for it. So Sean Doherty's the head judge, and in case of an assassination, I will be the head judge of the tournament. And so Sean is fantastic. I don't want him to get assassinated.
Well, of course you're
And so, and I do. I think that total this year, my not to play calendar had 8 major events, which is fine. That's Grand Prix, Opens, Invitationals, and Mythic Championships. So I'm usually doing something semi-Magic related. Just it's kind of what I do.
Yeah. So I just want to show you a little bit of a different perspective myself.
Yeah.
I play Magic one night a week. And then I do logistical stuff for my area maybe once a month. That's the extent of time I have right now. This past summer, I worked roughly 50 hours a week at my day job, and then another 30 hours a week at the job that I love doing, which is pastoring. And so my time doesn't match up with what we typically consider to be a Magic judge.
I would say yours is more typical. I'm a far outlier.
So I I dedicate one night a week to playing
Yep.
and or judging Magic. That's it. And I'm okay with that.
I think that's great, honestly.
Yeah.
Fantastic boundary.
Because my goals are very different than Rob's, and they're very different than Morgan's. My goals center around developing communities and developing positive players and really building a community of people around me that enjoy what they do. Whereas Rob, what are some of your main goals in Magic right now?
In Magic,
And or judging.
In Magic, I want a day 2 and like that's my. I also would love to top 8 and or win the MCQ. So
Okay.
like I would love to play on a Mythic Championship or whatever they're calling them next year. The
Players
Players.
tour.
yeah the touring players. Yeah,
Judges.
Yeah. So I would love to play on one of those. I've judged those, and I've never played one. And I want to. It's fun. And like in judging stuff, my goal is to make the judge program remain functional over the next year. Like as a big large scale program goal, my goal is to keep the judges in the area reasonably well developed, help train people, help engage people, help lift up spirits and make people happier about being part of the judge community in the Midwest as we expand back out to being a mega region again. So, and help support Eric Levine, who's got a bunch of stuff on his plate.
Morgan, this is a very personal question for you because I don't know the answer for you. What are your goals in the judging community or in playing Magic?
So my goals in playing Magic, they just got a little bit bigger because it looks like there are a lot of paths to the Players Tour. So I think that would be super cool qualifying for that. As a judge, I really want to get as deeply involved in the strings that are related to Grand Prix as possible. So for example, when I was at the Magic Fest last week, I completely on my own wrote a report about the online decklist system that we were using because I saw that it's something that they're doing and that they want to improve, and I wanted to make it better. I also want to help people that are in the Magic community personally. I recently this year have started posting about wellness and about confidence and all of this stuff on my personal Facebook feed and on my Twitter feed, and people have been responding really well to that. So my goal is to make it accessible for people who wouldn't necessarily look at eating healthy and be like, oh, that's something that I can achieve, and turn that from into eating a salad to eating to make your body more functional throughout the day. I think that's really important. So my goal is a little bit more one-on-one, but I still want to make the community a better place.
That's definitely that definitely shines through in your life. So here's the hard part. How do you balance playing, judging, your family, and really just getting enough rest? What are some of the key things that you see yourself do?
One of the things that I've gotten really good at is saying, asking for help and saying when I need something. Me being remote this week, today, is the result of me realizing that I should tell Ken, hey Ken, I can't make it. I still want to present because this is something that I've been planning on doing, but it was just really not possible for me to go, given the circumstances that I'm in with regards to my family and my injury, and just where I am physically. So asking for something that I needed is a skill that I really didn't have for a long time and that I'm developing and that I'm really happy about.
And I'd like you to know that I gave her many outs, but she chose to be here.
Yeah.
She chose to be involved, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah,
so
I'm
thank
happy.
you.
Appreciative.
Rob, how about you? How do you find balance between your family and judging and time?
So one of the things that I've been happiest with is I found a job that doesn't demand infinite time. When I'm done with my day job, I go home. And They like my manager and a couple of my coworkers have my home contact info, and I don't work extra hours. I do my 40 and I leave. And Zeiss is fantastic for doing that because they're like, yeah, you should have a life outside of us. Why would we demand you be here all the time? We should hire somebody else if we need you here 60 hours a week. That seems dumb. My wife and I have a lot of interests that overlap. Ruth is just as geeky as I am. We play D&D every other week. We have calendared things to like go out. We just got a subscription to the Arboretum, the Minnesota Arboretum, the Landscape Arboretum. It's to the west of the Twin Cities. It is preposterous. Apparently, it's like 1,200 acres, and I didn't even know it existed. And so we've been going out and doing trips like that. We do regular walks. So like there's an amount of the geeky stuff that I do that overlaps with Ruth. And this is my primary hobby. So this like this is my, and because I've been contracted and stuff, this is basically my second job, is doing judging related stuff. The not judging magic stuff, I've had to sit down and figure out, like Ruth and I just played 2-edit at Minneapolis. We just, there's a limited amount of events that I can do per year. I will do local events to play. If I'm getting paid, I'll fly somewhere. Or if it's a team event and I get a finite amount of those per year that are sensible to go to. So, and we sat down and figured out I'm allowed to spend 50% of my weekend days on judge stuff over the course of the year. Like we sat down and worked that out a couple of years back, and that has worked. And it is approximately, I want to say that judging makes about half as much as my day job. I would have to go crunch. So like as a second job, it's just an extra chunk on our income. So
yeah, one of the things that I do is I schedule my life in 15-minute increments. I know what I'm doing every 15 minutes. I work 8 to 12 hours a day at my day job, and then I do ministry until I'm done. And I schedule time. If I want to take a break, it is blocked off. This past Thursday, I had a pastor's ministry meeting that I wanted to go to. That was a 3-hour chunk that I took out of my day, and that was it. Nothing touched it. I have it scheduled next month too. It's something that I just don't miss. Mm-hmm. But once it's in my book, it doesn't change. It will take an act of God to change something in my calendar book. Literally. All right. So,
and you know what you're talking about.
So go ahead, Morgan.
I think one of the like really important things that Ken's saying is like, Ken, you prioritize your life. You have what's important to you, and you know it. And I think that's really important when it comes to judging, but also when it comes to other aspects of your life. Like if something is really important to you, knowing that you are being aware of it and prioritizing it is a really good idea. Like that's how it is with me and my health. Like I know that I prioritize sleep. So I plan on getting to bed by 9 o'clock because that's one of my priorities. And so, yeah, like if you haven't done something like this, take a piece of paper, write down everything you want and rank it. And that will help you if you are like making decisions. If you feel like you're too busy, like maybe look at things that are coming from the bottom of the list and think like, do I really need to go out like and join the soccer team that meets like 3 times a week? If it takes up that much time, but it's not that important to you, like why do you feel like you should do it? If you think it's because you want to hang out with friends, maybe find something that gels a little bit with something higher on your priority list. Like if playing games is also important to you, maybe game night or something instead. So like I'm a big fan of lists. Listing your priorities is a big one to help you kind of balance your life and feel less overwhelmed if that's something that you find happening to you.
All right. One of the other things that I'd like to point out is that we're trying to make you big, Morgan.
Yeah.
Oh, here, yeah, I can stop sharing my screen.
Yeah.
Aha. Success.
Yeah.
I can see all of you now too. This is great.
Dan has a question. Speaking.
Hi, Dan. What's up?
This is actually for Ken. So
Okay.
a while back, I was helping Ken study for his L2. I don't remember when this was. Back before he became an L2, and he decided that we should schedule a phone call. And I just gotta say that is like the sort of thing that I never expected I would really enjoy having scheduled, but it worked out really well for me.
So if I value my time, I want to value other people's time as well. And to know that I have a mentoring phone call that I'm asking somebody to commit and prepare for in their week, I want to be ready and prepared to be able to meet with them at that time. And so I appreciate you allowing me to schedule with you.
I just like more than like what I'm talking about here is just the fact that it was actually scheduled, which is not a thing most of my things are. I found that very calming, and I wish more of my life was like that.
So here's my question for Rob and Morgan. What kind of advice would you give yourself from 5 years ago? If you were to talk to yourself from 5 years ago, what kind of advice or information would you give yourself to make yourself a healthier person today?
Listen to other people. It's a good one. Like, it used to be very hard for me to take feedback, and so events got to be very stressful to me at the end of the day, because that's when people generally give feedback. And so I would just leave every event being upset, and that didn't really help with like how I felt about judging at the time.
Yeah.
I was trying to make myself like a healthier mentally and physically person. Just, we live in a beautiful state. We live in a beautiful city. Like, go for more walks, because I didn't start doing that until this year, and or until like last year. And there's no reason not to. I just didn't. Just get outside. Don't be continually slave to a chat screen. And like, anytime that you feel like you should be playing a video game, that's fine, but decide whether or not you want to sort cards instead, because it's about the same amount of value. No, I mean, in terms of like if I'm playing a video game, sometimes we'll be doing hand-eye coordination, I'll be going through some fascinating piece of dialogue, but like, I can throw The Good Place up on a TV and, sort magic cards because I need to solve my cards problem.
I second Rob's going outside thing. If I had been there and if my leg hadn't just been recovering from surgery, we would have gone for a walk around the building.
Yeah.
It would have been great.
Yeah. We did do that for lunch. We had to walk around.
That's awesome. Yeah. We planned that, Ken.
Yeah. Well, the door was locked. Otherwise, I would have gone. All right. How about your communities, the places where you play? How do you build healthy communities around you?
For me, I think the biggest thing is don't wait for someone to tell you that something is wrong. I've been like educating myself a lot on the things that go on that we don't really notice because you just write it off as just something being weird, or you don't notice because it doesn't affect you. So be more vigilant for the people around you as well as for yourself in terms of comfort and in terms of like how inclusive the community is.
Make decisions about who you're going to spend your time with, because the one of the things about being a community member is there's 7 billion people in the world. You can build a community from scratch out of random people that you like or dislike.
It's called church planting. I do that.
Yeah. Well, no. But that's a great great example. You go out and you're just like, there's a bunch of people here that I would like to be involved with, in your case in a church, in our case in a magic community or a judge community, and you can be like, I'm going to specifically, I want to hang out with Ken Anders more because he's a great person. So I figure out what I need to do to make that happen. I've got a Thursday board game group. We meet every Thursday. This is on my calendar. Thursdays are bad days for me because I play board games every Thursday. You can do that like with just judges being part of an actual community member group. Ken Burrell was doing that with judge mobs, and I need to get back into doing that because that was a blast, and I really wish that I did that more. And now, like, probably will. I'm gonna have some time opening up. So.
Thursday nights.
No. No. You're welcome to join my board game group. Like my board game group's great, but.
What about you, Morgan? What would you say, really, to the average judge about their play community? How would you encourage them to make it safer? Or even
I think that like asking people about their experiences is really important, because a lot of the time the experiences that matter are going to be things that you don't know about. A lot of the experiences that we know about now, the experiences of women in magic, for example, are pretty well publicized versus the experience of LGBT people in magic, or the experience of people of color in magic. Like, those are the experiences that I don't really hear about as much, and so those are the experiences that I want to seek out, because being aware of them is what's going to help you speak up when your community is toxic to it, because you don't know that a community is toxic towards a group of people if you're not in that group of people generally.
Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
What do you do? What steps do you believe you can take in order to draw that out of people? Because getting people to volunteer this information can often be very difficult.
I think that one important thing is letting people know what your goal is. So if your goal is to make your community safer for people, for marginalized people, like, make sure that's known and make sure that's seen in your actions as well, because there are things that you can do right now that will let people know that you are making your community safer for people. It includes like speaking up when people are using slurs as slang, and that will like let people know that your actions are suiting your words, and also just get to know people on a personal level. Like, if there's a person in your community that doesn't talk to a lot of people, talk to them. Like, there's probably a reason they're doing it, and it's not because they like don't want to talk to people. And if it's because they don't want to talk to people, that's cool too, but at least you know for sure.
Very fair. How much ownership or responsibility or concern do you take about the spaces that you play and about the people that you play with? What are your thoughts on taking ownership of the shops that you play in and their play community?
So I'll field a little bit of this, because in the competitive scene, like, a lot of times you don't get to choose. It's like that everybody from every store comes into a big competitive tournament, right? Or like Magic Fest Minneapolis. That isn't choosing a play community. That's just everybody who plays Magic shows up, right? But you can still make choices with how you promote things, how you help things, and what kind of things are positive role models in that group, and that will evolve the way that the group behaves, even in a big group like that. I'm going to pick on Weird Cards, Magic Kids, because they're great. I point people to them. Their goal is to make things, like, do good while gaming and help out kids and help out charity hospitals. There are hospitals in the charity, and like, their goal is to do a lot of these things, and giving them, like, lending my voice, because I have a reasonable voice in the Magic judge and play community, lending my voice to speak up for them has paved a lot of good paths for them. Just introducing people to people that you know can make a lot of difference. Just saying, hey, do you know Jen? She's at her first Magic Fest, and you're Mashi, you're the head of Channel Fireball. Meet each other. I definitely like making those introductions. Doesn't seem like it's a big deal. Just like, yeah, I know Rob. I know Lems. They're like Lems works for Channel Fireball and goes to a lot of events and has but introducing the Weird Cards people and like pushing them to Lems, being like, talk to Lems, he'll get you spots at Magic Fest. They're now at every Magic Fest in the US, right? And they're making a lot of difference in local communities and making people happier about playing Magic and making the communities better. Just doing that kind of stuff is a big deal, connecting good people with good people, because yeah, that's my take on how I curate.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I have two levels that I approach this from. One is from a local level, and one is from this digital social media level. It's sweet. So from a local level, I try to make sure that I'm advocating for a community that I feel safe in and that others will feel safe in, and that includes like calling out people when they're saying nonsense in the store, especially if they're saying it really loud and there's like a kid, because I play a lot with a lot of like college adjacent aged people, and they understand when you go, dude, that's so not cool. Like there's a kid in here. They'll like be embarrassed. So just calling out behaviors that aren't appropriate and aren't like inclusive is really helpful, especially if people consider you a peer, because then you're doing what Rob said and modeling that behavior. From a social level, I try to do my best to elevate the voices of people around me who have experiences to share when it comes to Magic. LGBTQ plus people and people of color are really important to the Magic community, but we don't hear from a lot of them or haven't been recently. That's changing, which is amazing. But like retweeting and interacting with those people as much as I can is something that I do. And it's something that you can do too. Like go to the people that you follow and see who they follow, because you're probably going to find some new voices that you haven't heard in terms of Twitter interactions and stuff like that.
So we're kind of at the point where my directed questions are kind of dried up. What kind of questions do you have regarding healthy judges, Andrew?
So at our store, it's a pretty small community, but we have a tournament grinder that has expressed concern about coming to play at our FNMs because he feels like that will push some of the people that are there for fun away from the community. And so how do you balance your casual players with your more competitive, want to get better, make it to the Pro Tour players?
I'm the try-hard, okay? I love spiking events. It is probably one of my most favorite things to do. I have to recognize that even though I'm good at Magic sometimes, I have to create fun for other people. I'm the one that's responsible for how they interact while we're playing. And if they want to win, great, you can win. So I'm going to play goofy decks. I'm going to play decks that are fun and interesting. I'm going to play decks that allow me to laugh at playing things. And Minotaur Standard in Theros Fly? Oh my goodness. Fantastic. But at the same time, I have to understand that I can go find events where I am the try-hard. And I may be a small fish in a big pond. I can go play at the GP. I can go play at the MCQs. I can go play at all these different places. But I have to find the right venue. Magic Online.
Yep.
Great spot to be a try-hard.
Well, I want to point out a related thing to this. I have played 2 matches against Reed Duke in my life, and I am 50% against Reed Duke. But Reed Duke, he's fantastically good at Magic, right? One of the best players in the world, and he's very, very pleasant to play against. I could stand to lose to Reed Duke another 2 dozen, 3 dozen times because that was one of the most fun Magic games that I've ever played. And it's very possible to be competitive and also, like, you can win all the time and still make people happy. And so that's definitely possible. Have you all heard of the Levine Trench? Eric Levine came up with this. So it's a let me pull it up real quick. It's a great image. Images. Perfect. Okay, there we go. Go to website. I can be able to see this fine. Come on. So the big deal with the Levine Trench is that you would think that when people get better at Magic, they would get worse to play against. That's not the case. Having judged at different levels of the game, this is Levine Trench. It has an x-axis across the bottom of play skill and a y-axis of the vertical axis of how nice they are. How nice they are to play against. And you can see that as the person gets better, they get less nice, so they get a point where they're almost good. Somebody who can top 8 PTQ top 8 hero, day 2's local GPs, but 1/5's day 2. They're fine. They're a pretty good player, but they're miserable to play against, right? But then up here, anybody who's at that point when he made this Gold Plus Pro, they're incredibly pleasant, nice people, just as cool. Jerry Thompson is
The nicest man ever, maybe?
he's incredible, right? And there's very, very few. I can name on like one hand the pros that I've met that have gone away from going, man, that dude's an asshole. And that's I've met a lot of pro players. I got in a submarine with PVDDR once. It's a story for another day. But so the point being is that it's possible to be a good player and make people happy with you and be nice about this. This isn't going to be on the recording because I'm not broadcasting on a screen. But it's possible to just encourage people to be like, yeah, if you want to be a competitive player, you can compete. You can trash these players all day long and make them happy to lose against you. That's fine. That's a good goal, and I think it's possible to encourage your store members to do that in different ways, right? To be competitive without being colossal jerks.
There's a structural way to encourage like more casual environments as well, and that's to flatten prizes a lot more. So like the store that I used to play in Minneapolis, Lodestone, they had like $100 events, like, right? So you could win cash from playing in their modern events, or store credit. Can't remember. It might be store credit now. But like there was high stakes events, but we also put on events that had like pack payouts and pack per win, stuff where there was a chance that you won something even if you did terribly, because we wanted to have nights where we could have more casual people as well. So like that's another way to look at your store and be like, this is a casual store, and in order to foster a casual environment, we're going to put out like prizes that are more everybody wins versus like people who come here who like play to win.
Yeah, and that'll make a lot of difference to the players if they're encouraged to just win enough, but like just barely.
Other questions? Mike?
So I'm going to have to, I think, address this mostly to Morgan.
Yep.
I am a non-binary identifying homosexual person.
Mm-hmm.
My LGS is not D20. D20 is great, but the place I do most of my judging is not good about these issues at all. I truly am the only person at that store most of the time who cares about these things. Mm-hmm. And because I am the only person who is in that marginalized community, it is, no one takes it seriously when I bring it up because I am, quote unquote, the only person affected by it. So I do my best. I call it out every time it happens, but it's always just like a brief apology, and then 45 minutes later, someone yells, "That's gay," when someone plays Elishnorn in their Commander game or something ridiculous.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, is there anything I can do past just like actively calling it out? Because I don't know what else to do, really. The TO also doesn't really care when it happens in the store. I'm just doing my best, and I'm kind of at a loss.
So first of all, I really admire you for taking the time to call it out every time it happens, because that's what I was talking about with microaggressions. They can be really exhausting. So like, kudos to you for doing that, and I hope that you keep doing it, because that's awesome. I would try to find individual people who you could consider allies in that store, because when it's just the one person affected by it calling it out, it can be easy, unfortunately, to ignore it or just to apologize to that person every time it comes up. But if you have people that you can go up to and say, hey, just like on a person to person level, can you please call out your friends when they're using terms like "that's gay," then you are more likely to get through to them, because then it's not just the person affected, but it's also their friends who are calling them out. And I'm really sorry that that's your situation. Does that help?
Yeah, that helped a lot.
Okay, I'm really glad.
Other questions, comments? I want to thank everybody. I hope this was valuable to you. I hope that we spent some good time talking about things that matter to you. If you have any comments for me about how things were run, or any comments for Rob or Morgan, I'm sure that we can forward those on to them. And I'm glad that a lot of you were able to be here today, and I'm sad that we're missed a few. We're here to be resources. We're here to encourage. We're here to be the positive aspect of the community that all of you want and need, and are striving to be and are in your own community. And so thank you. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you for learning. Thank you for growing and sharing with us. And if you want to share at one of these, no matter how they look in the future, I'd love to have you come and join us. I just arbitrarily choose people that I think are awesome, and have them shout things at me. And I think you guys are all awesome too, so thank you for being here. What we're going to do is we're going to have Rob set up someplace and
Over there.
throw foils at you.
Rob gets the corner.
Make sure that you take a little bit of time for him.
Yep. Morgan, I am your address.
Okay, yep, I will do.
Right. If you have any feedback cards that you would like distributed that didn't go out to the person that you wanted to give it to, by all means, you can hand it to me anonymously, or you can put your name on it. Minotaurs make great walruses.
And vice
So more than likely do that. If you have any questions or things that you want to talk about, by all means, we're here to hang out.
Yep.
The final thing that I would say, Decadent Draft will fire by 5 o'clock if you want to hang out. Cube, Eric's looking for how many people? 5 minimum, 7 preferred. Cube is a huge thing.
It's counting me. It's 8 total.
8 total.
I'm counting my
It's like, what kind of weird cube adds odd people?
7-player Chaos Winston Draft.
Can we never
He's
say
added-
those words in that order?
You added 2 additional colors and a superstar.
Can we call it All-Star instead, Rob?
Yeah.
And I know that Dom is interested in playing some Commander if you want to do that.
Commander and a Momir cube.
And Momir Cube.
Oh, that's sweet.
I have no idea how that would work. Momir Cube?
Oh, I have all the creatures.
No, but Cube?
No, it's not a cube. It's just Momir. I don't know. It's Momir basic.
Okay, got it. Momir Basic. I was like, wait, are you drafting what your Momirs?
Cool.
That's interesting.
You've given the idea. I'll do the
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Yes.
Thank you, Morgan.
Appreciate it, Morgan.
Thank you,
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
so
much.
much. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions privately. My DMs are open, so hit me up. Have a good day, guys.
Yeah,
You too.
thank you.
Thank you so much, Morgan.
Bye.